Good morning to all humans here on Earth, Moon, and Mars, and to the far reaches of our solar system, and any of us that have gotten stuck out in intergalactic space. Today is October 8th. It's 2012. It's 7:22 a.m. here in the Pacific Northwest of the North American continent. We're the skinny one, two isolated ones if you're looking at us from space. And we've got a lot of stuff to go into today. This is the first new woo in a while. Some stuff is popping, and I needed to let everybody know that we're encountering some temporal markers. Forgive me, this is going to be tedious for both of us, I'm sure. Let's take a little bit of a divergence here. We've been suffering heavy-duty chemtrailing, which leads us to start waking up around 4 a.m. here, sneezing and snorting and trying to expel the nasty little nano-aluminum particles and everything else they're putting into the air. They've altered the pattern of chemtrails, which I'll go into in a minute, but the result is that I'm probably super snouty, leading to the appellation of honky that was used as a derogatory response to the term nigger. And honky was because all of us white guys, especially any of us from the with a descent or ancestors in France, we've got these huge damn snouts, but yet we've got sinuses that are not really correspondingly that large or that open. So we always have this tendency to respond to stuff in the air. It makes us good coal miners and that kind of stuff because we've got a lot of hair in our nose and we can keep the particles out. But it doesn't make us good athletes, which is the non-melanin challenged peoples, the people that they used to call Negroes or of the Negroid descent. There's new terms in development at the moment. But African Americans of a particular racial profile with the wide nose and wide set cheekbones are genetically superior breathers and have sinus structures that make them the athletes that they are. They're able to suck in vast quantities of oxygen that just, no matter how much I suck here on my nose, I'm just not going to get the same response. I actually, as a little white guy, I've got an astounding lung capacity, but like the rest of us white guys, I've got these little tiny sinuses that intrude on that. Now, it makes me a good diver. Whereas black people in general suffer great degree more the potential for problems when exposed to pressure and gases under pressure. So, it's just how you're made. In any event, the chemtrails probably are not afflicting the black people as much as they are us French or Northern European descent white guys here in the Pacific Northwest. So, again, my apologies. If it's going to be a rough listen, you can just abandon it, and somebody I'm sure will write this up and let you know what I'm saying. You won't have to suffer through this. But there's been a lot of stuff going on. I'll try and keep this as concise as I can. Let's start with our first temporal marker. This is a really key one. This is the scandal we've been waiting for. It's developing in Europe as we forecast. It's involving the pedophilic network as we forecast. It involves deep officialdom, what everybody else calls government, as we forecast. It involves the interconnection of 3 foreign states, which is England, Holland, and Turkey, and we forecast this 3-way co-tango among these parties relative to this particular scandal. And so it's actually emerging now, and so we think that we're looking at probably a 2-week effect, 2-week lag time from the level, because the visibility hit a key marker point today. It actually got to the point where it's trickling into the alternative media, and real soon, and actually even in EU and in Asia, some of the mainstream media. So this is why we had this uptick in visibility number. Since we reached this particular level with it, and it has all of the forecast components of the sexual scandal that's going to abhor everybody, and the murders that were involved. Basically, we've got a pedophilic child rapist network tied into the crematoria industry and body selling of parts of the children that they abuse through an intermediary in Turkey into Israel, into the medical community, let's just call it that, or industry, the chew your body up industry. Anyway, so this scandal's breaking, and this is a temporal marker that we've been waiting for relative to the global currency markets and the markets in general. So I think we're within 2 weeks or so of because of the type of short-term language fade over from immediacy language, I think we'll hit a particular level of visibility that will start to shake the markets relative to the people involved with this scandal. So if you really want to see what's going on, and you're in the stock market industry or money industry or that sort of thing, where the rumors and ultimately the facts that come out behind those rumors make a difference in the flow of currency through you, then you would be well advised to track this scandal down and see where it leads, both in the direction of Turkey to Israel and then in the direction of London out of the central location in Holland, although there will be a Brussels involvement just because of the government officials and what's going on there. So follow that scandal, because it's a big marker for the markets and their next movement, especially as related to hyperinflation. Okay, now in a sort of related, although it won't seem it at the moment, there's a really good interview out there with the Dr. Richard Allen Miller, done by Carrie Cassidy, and I have a link on my site to it, halfpasthuman.com, so that you can jump to it. It's through American Freedom Radio. She interviewed this guy. He's a physicist, something that goes to the point of quanta physicist or new age physics or science, vibrational energy physics, however you want to define it. There's so many terms that are all talking about basically the same thing. Anyway, this guy knows his shit. You can tell by listening to him, because he sounds a lot like me. He's an old, raspy, bald guy that knows it so well that he cannot brook poor information out there, and so will interrupt and just talk over everybody just to let you know that, the stuff you're spewing out is crap, and he really knows what's going on. And he's not going to sit there and listen to something that he knows to be false. It's a weird kind of a syndrome. It's not arrogance, especially with us old guys. We're far from arrogant. The arrogance is actually a subset of a particular emotional structure that involves the hormone testosterone and feelings of power. And so without that, you really don't have arrogance. You really don't have ego. It may seem that way to people without the ability to discriminate, without the subtlety of thinking. But it's not arrogance. It's surety. It's certainty. It's confidence. And you just know, because you've done it so many times, And it's in certain circumstances. I mean, you give examples where you got an old guy and he's in a raft with, say, 6 or 8 fellows, and they're, Zodiac kind of inflatable raft, and they're going down a river. And because he's done this so many damn times and seen such similar circumstances, even if he's not done this particular river, he knows when he can see and sense the danger in a way that these younger fellows can't. It's a matter of experience. And when he yells at them and whonks them on the head with the oars because they're doing things badly and going in the wrong direction, it has nothing to do with arrogance. He's trying to save their damn lives. And so this is kind of the way that Miller is coming across. It's not arrogance. It's surety. It's certainty of knowledge and confidence. Well worth listening to. It's a long interview, but he talks about the deep psi stuff, the secret ops kind of things. The guy is obviously connected. He's easy to track down relative to his bio and Boeing, in spite of the fact that he disappears for long periods of time relative to what's reported about him. He's not invisible. And so you can indeed support his words with evidence of his walking around on the planet for a number of years. I hope that we get more interviews out of him. I'll try at some point. I've ordered his books and I want to read them, and then I'll see if I can't get hold of him and invite him to chat with me. If I can figure out how to record it, I will do so. and put it out there because he's well worth talking to. One thing that we just kind of glossed over in that interview was a statement, pay attention for it, where he talks about consciousness allows you to change the script. Very important information there. Now, next item here is government, getting back to the scandal in a way and getting back to the chemtrails, tying all this in together. We've got a situation going on here where there is a huge, massive change that has occurred in the weather in the West Coast. I've been following these patterns intimately since being slapped in the face by chemtrails in the early 90s, and have watched the way in which they alter things around here. And I've noticed years ago that we would get, for instance, one of the chemtrail spraying clouds that would blow over us. We used to send fleets of planes over Puget Sound, and maybe 5 or 6. These planes would fly in grid patterns until they had sprayed a mat. This mat would then blow to the east. I'm at the very southern end of Puget Sound, and some of it would slop over on us as it was blowing east. We were not really the intended target, I believe. In any event, when it would do so, I would notice, because I have all instrumentation all the helling on, I would notice a 7 or 8% or degree drop in humidity. And it was because these chemtrail things were just sucking the moisture out of everything in sight. I could actually, because I have increased vision due to meditative practices, and the ability to see the trees breathe around here, I could actually see the trees, and still can, see the trees respond to the chemtrails as the chemtrails go over in these huge mats. Now, the mats were a function of them, by them I mean the globalist or the shadow government or whoever the hell is actually spraying the things. They had to learn the process of what they were doing. And so the mats they used to spray were really a function from 97 through about 2003, and they stopped doing that sometime 2002, 2003 time. However, they're spraying now much more sophisticated, but they have recently changed another pattern there, leading to my sneezing and sinus headaches, and even Kathy's affected. The dogs wake up sneezing. Probably the crows are even sneezing, because they're doing this stuff overnight, and they're doing it way off the coast of the Pacific, and such that it dissipates into this huge haze that is then shifting east towards most of y'all. Almost everybody on the planet is east of me in one sense or another, especially in the North American here. Now, the chemtrails, when they hit us, are so vast that we get the haze effect early in the morning, and it will drop our temperature. So I record temperature, and I've got, as I say, instrumentation, and I check and validate my instruments, and so I get up and it's 47 degrees Fahrenheit, and I might get up at, say, 5:30. But 2 hours later, we've lost 3 degrees of temperature and 7 degrees of humidity as the main chemtrail mass is blowing in over us from the Pacific. Such that by 8 or 9 in the morning, maybe, the haze level is just trailing off, and we're actually getting blinding sun. We've had more clear days this year than we've had combined in the last 7 to 10 years in this area. We're in a drought of record proportions. People in BC, Canada, to the north of me by about 6 or 8 hours, and several degrees of latitude. These people are very, very much afraid because the forests are so dry up there. A combination of effects could occur. We've now entered into a period where we must heat. It's getting cold at night. A lot of heat around here is wood, because we're resource rich in wood and resource poor in a lot of other things, and resource poor in money. And so a lot of people heat with wood. The forests are so tinder dry, though, that a spark under these conditions might set off a forest fire that we couldn't put out, especially in BC, Canada. This is true because in BC, the area of the forests are so vast in relation to the population that the population up there has not got the resources nor could supply enough manpower to put out an extensive fire if it got started in some of the deep forest. Nearly the same around here in some of our North Cascades and Deep Cascades woods. It's gotten so dry here that I can put that I'm attempting desperately to keep our local, our rhododendrons and other plants going, and I've had to swap over from trying to do deep soaking to merely keeping a layer of water on the feeder roots long enough for them to suck something up so they don't wither. It's gotten so dry here due to the chemtrails that the county to the south of us, actually to the southwest and then up to the north of us, Mason County has extensive brush fires. Very extremely unusual for us to have brush fires over here that lead to forest fires that in turn cause evacuations, but they're happening. Usually it's so wet over here that people from the other side come this way during the fire season, especially since all the smoke is blowing in their direction to the east. And we've got that situation occurring at the moment where it is so dry due to the chemtrails continuously that we're reaching probably some sort of critical level of dryness relative to the timber around us. There are a lot of dead trees anyway, affected by insects, vast numbers of them in the forest. The reason the insects were able to get at the trees is because of the huge amount of aluminum that's being dropped on us in the chemtrails, which brings us back to government, which is basically what I want to say is that government telegraphs what it's doing even through the absence of stuff. And so there is evidence to be found in the governmental action in the absence of what they do. By this, we have a discrete example for this is that a number of years ago, all of the sampling organizations in the western states, California, Oregon, and Washington, and even in BC, Canada, and even in Alaska, as part of this Region 10 international cooperation thing going with Canada, all of our governmental agencies agreed to do what? Stop testing for aluminum in the water. This, of course, was because we had vast quantities of chemtrails, and those scientists that were testing knew that there was vast quantities of aluminum in the water and couldn't figure out where it was coming from because they didn't look up. A lot of these guys don't ever look up. It's not natural for humans to look up because we've never had major predators, except in small regions of the planet, that would leap down on us. Usually predators for us or nasty situations come from the ground. It's either poisonous or the risk of stepping on something that can cause a problem because we were barefoot to start with. We didn't understand shoes for a while. And even if you had shoes, you had to watch out because there's still nasty stuff all around. And most of the predators that would get us would be at eye level or ever so slightly above, but not looking directly up. So our eye structure, our brain structure, none of it has us focus on the skies. Probably a big lack these days, since that's where our main group of predators seems to be making their predation upon us. From, interdimensional spacecraft coming down and sucking you or your local cow up, or now the chemtrail guys spraying the hell out of us until it's not only changed the local weather patterns, it has changed the local topography in the sense of the plants are dying off, causing erosion and so on. Plants are dying off because of the vast quantities of metals that are being pumped into the air that are now coming down and settling into the soil and on everything. It also means you have to really, in this area, take a hard look at how you're going to grow your food and keep this stuff off of it. And scrub and wash everything. The particles are extremely small. If you want a real scary thrill in the Northwest, I don't know how far it goes. I don't think it goes over the Cascades or over the Sierra Nevadas, but it might. But at night, let me get back to the pattern. They used to spray in the day, and so we would really irritate you because we got no sunlight at all, because they would spray in the day and obscure the sunlight maybe, so say 30 to 40%. So it was always hazy around here. And we've got a terrible cloud problem anyway, so to speak, because of everything blowing in off the Pacific naturally. But since about the late 90s, they started spraying in the day, causing us to lose sunlight during the day to the point where it's affecting our weather and our crops in one direction. Now, this year, 2012, for whatever reason, recently, they've started a program of spraying at night and leaving us alone during the day. The combined effect of this is the chemtrails pass over early in the morning, headed east, and they're huge. The mats they used to spray here might be, I don't know, say 600 miles to a side. Now these things are probably several thousands of miles, tens of thousands of miles maybe on the side. Anyway, these mats of chemtrails blow over, suck the moisture up out of the ground, out of the trees, out of the air, everything. And then we get hit by the sun. And so we're not having dew the way we used to around here. It just is getting removed as the chemtrails are sucked, go over. We're also losing 2 to 3 degrees of temperature as they go over temporarily. And then we get hit by the sun. Now, I appreciate the sun. It's nice. It's a good thing. It makes the plants grow. But at the same time, without our normal ecosystem and the normal transpiration, respiration process that gives us the dew and the protective moistures and our rain, we're basically screwed because we're sitting in the largest concentration of forests outside of Siberia and the Amazon. So it's perhaps potentially a very nasty situation. A lot of us on the West Coast could flee to the water if we get to the point where the land literally catches fire. But anybody, if it does, it would be as bad as volcanoes in terms of altering the weather for the planet as a whole, and something to be considered. So anyway, the government has stopped aluminum testing a couple of years before we get hit by the chemtrails. And other examples of the government evidence through absence is they stopped reporting M3 before the hyperinflation by a couple of years. And now we've got the situation where we're hearing about all the ammo purchases. But they're not saying anything about that, of course. Sort of an inverse absence of evidence, because when you go to buy ammo, there ain't none. And they don't really want you to have it. It's an issue of information coming to the point where the trends are collapsing in on themselves, and being able to highlight certain trends gives you big insight into the future. So, for instance, look at all of the things. If you want an interesting, I can't detail them all here because it would just take too much time and I'd get really distracted by each and every one that I brought up just because they're all interesting. But if you want some fascinating study, after you listen to the Alan Miller or Richard Alan Miller interview, go and see if you can find long-term reporting from the U.S. or any government for that matter, reports of potential crop sizes, erosion factors, rain patterns, any of that simply is not being done. I think it's because the Council on Foreign Relations and all of these kind of people recognize that it's not worth the trouble, and they can divert the money to something else. It's not worth the trouble because it's not projectable anymore. It's not projectable anymore in terms of crop cycles and this kind of thing, simply because they know what Miller knows, what I know, and that is that the sun is shifted, or the Earth is shifted within the cone that it's following in the sun, and it is in the process of shifting, continue to shift for probably radically for the next 4 or 5 years, and then gradually trail off. I don't know how long the process will take in toto. But because it's shifting, we're getting a situation of no pattern in terms of our weather. So we have certain weather conditions today that I'm not going to assume will exist this time next year. The weather patterns next year may be radically different. We may be getting into a situation where here in the Pacific Northwest and maybe in the Northern Hemisphere as a whole, we have 2 seasons. We may end up with a very long, dry and hot season, followed by a reasonably short but very intense stormy wet season. And the wet season may be beyond our understanding of wet because everything is sort of like pent-up demand and it's just going to unleash on us. This long dry season, the dry season part of it, may extend for years before we have a wet. So it's going to get really odd. I'm hoping that we get a major wet here in the Pacific Northwest soon, or our goose is cooked. And a lot of you guys will be smelling us cooking because the smoke will go around the planet 3 or 4 times. Anyway, the information collapsing on itself, revealing the patterns that are showing up all around us, points to the reaction of the government drivers or owners to the conditions around us. We see, for instance, the blatant attempt to manipulate reality via what they think of as magic ritual by their satanic majesties, short and dumpy, bad-dressing woman, and tall and scary, hopefully going to die real soon, man claiming to be the owners of Britain and all the people in it. These two individuals and their crime family went to a great degree of trouble and spent a lot of money and blatantly splashed the planet with their rituals during the Olympics here, both opening and closing. Those rituals, for the main, have not seemed to generate the same level of magic and response that they have in the past. Things seem to be, for the powers that be, becoming muddied as they are losing the information war. Their magic only works on the unaware and unawakened. So, for instance, it's like any other magic trick. If you see a guy on a stage and you watch him do his little magic trick and you know that he's palming the little ball and that the ball's not a ping pong ball, it's a collapsible foam ball, well, there's no magic involved. There's no suspension of disbelief. There is no understanding. There's no energy put into it, and that's what their satanic claim to be majesties are running into. And all the powers that be, Council on Foreign Relations, Tavistock, all of these guys are running into a situation where their magic rituals are starting to fail, and they're failing because they can't ripple through large amounts of population. This is just one way of looking at it. I could explain it in a number of different ways, but it's very much like those people who wake up are standing around and were obstacles to the free flow of bullshit magic thought. Very much like the little stanchions that are in a what are those things called? Like a pachinko or one of those games. Can't think of the name of it at the moment. Pinball. When one of the pinball games, the little ball drops at the top of the. Most of you people have never seen them because you play video games, but it's a mechanical device that literally has a ball roll down this slanted sheet of metal, and it can flow all the way down to the bottom. And you have these little flippers, and you can engage it and keep it going up. And it's sort of a good thing for a mindless kid very high on sugar to do for a while. But in any event, there are these little stanchions in there that prevent the ball from rolling down smoothly and alter its path. That's what's happening at the moment. One way to look at this is if you've got a few thousand people in a small city, back in West Virginia somewhere, and you got a wild-eyed, rabid astrologer, sitting around, reading everything he can get from 19 different screens on the internet, and he can tie it all together because of his astrology vision. And he goes on down to the local bar, and he can't keep his damn mouth shut to the point that he irritates people, but sooner or later some of them start listening. Their level, the people that are listening to this rabid astrologer babble in his beer about all the bad guys and their belligerent plans, he's one of these stanchions. He stands up there and the little steel ball runs into him, and it must bounce. It can't flow through the way that they want it to because they get their magic by flowing the energy through, and it picks up more magic. It's a resonance effect. Standing waves picking up more energy through causing sympathetic resonance in other standing waves and sort of like extracting the energy from them. And that's basically how the universe works for these guys and what they're doing with their magic. One way to look at it and one way to discuss it in words. So you got your rabbit-eyed beer-drinking astrologer back there in West Virginia babbling to all of his buddies. And these buddies of his, they start thinking a little bit, their few brain cells connect in a way that they wouldn't have otherwise. And so when their satanic majesties run out their crapola Olympic stuff, some of these guys back there in West Virginia are going, huh? Now they may not, in their own minds, disagree. They may not respond to themselves and say, what a load of crap. Look at all the symbolism here. Look at this tie to the Illuminati there. Look at this symbol goes all the way back to the ancient mystery schools. Oh, and here is their transitional tie to the serpent DNA that they think rules their life clan and so on. But beer-drinking astrology's buddies may think, in there going, and wondering, they themselves act as an impediment for the flow through of this energy rippling through. That's what's going on at the moment. That's why things seem to be not functioning very well for the officialdom, for the Illuminati behind them. That's why there is a certain level of discordance. A lot of this has to do with the solilunius, where the sun's pumping out energy and our brains are heating up in the temporal lobe because we're basically gigantic quasi-crystal vibrating machines in our brains. And brains don't actually process, they process thought. They don't create it or store it or hold it or any of that kind of stuff. They're just, if you will, they're an antenna, extremely well-tuned antenna, and have multiple functions that we wouldn't ask of a regular antenna here on Earth. Anyway, though, getting back to it, the buddies there acting as impediments to the free flow of energy have caused the officialdom a problem. Rednecks ain't responding the way they should. You got people in the cities ain't responding the way they should or were expected to. The energy isn't flowing. The people at the top have got some real issues. Things are starting to break down. And I was actually going to start this whole thing and call this one the quirky personalities. Quirky, as in odd, bizarre, strange, that kind of thing. Because if you'll notice, it's quirky personalities that are coming to the fore in the alternative media world, presenting the information that ultimately shows up to be true. It's not a normal Dan Rather media presenter kind of a fellow who tells you that behind the illusion of the vibrations so fast that we think them solid, there are interdimensional beings that are capable of screwing with us at an energetic level, and we're just too sensory bound to understand this. It's rather David Icke, who used to be a TV presenter, and he decided, or universe decided for him probably, that he was a quirky personality, and so he had to undergo a few trials and tests, as we all do, and his caused him to become more intense in his vision, and he's the guy who came on out and told you all of the stuff about the way that reality really is. And the TV presenter kind of guys, the TV anchors, they sit over there and they read the babble that someone writes for them from Tavistock or from Council on Foreign Relations. And it aims you at wars and attempts to get your mind to buy into their vision of the reality. And they are not a quirky personality. So Universe has decided that, well, it's going to deliver its message through quirky personalities. For one thing, it makes sort of sense in a weird kind of a way, because if you look at humanity as a vast tribe of primate relates, or primate-carrying beings. We have our DNA that seems to be a primate at its core. We share certain things relative to primates and how their brains work, and we're attracted to what I call sparklies. And these sparklies create new brain cell connections in your brain, and you feel good about looking at them and so on. The media uses this in the form of TV and their flashy lights, the 1080i and all of that. Universe uses it in a far more subtle but seemingly more gripping way, because you can get used to TV and you can get used to their flashy lights, and pretty soon you get tired of it and you put it aside, or at least you become slightly immune to it. You can never become immune to the quirky personality. And so Universe, what it does is it sort of causes the hard shell that the powers that be would have form over everything to crack, such that the quirky personalities have a way to wiggle out. And it uses a quirky personality to attract your attention because I have to acknowledge that I fit within that category, are sparklies at a very subtle sense, but at a very meaningful and powerful sense. So when you go and you listen and you watch David Icke do his 8-hour rap that changes your reality forever, that takes you through this initiation process and alters your brain. When you watch David Icke, your brain is altered. It is altered in a far more meaningful way than TV alters your brain, because TV alters your brain in the short-term memory fashion, and it actually blocks long-term memory and attempts to block analytical interconnecting pattern formation. David Icke, on the other hand, makes your brain create new patterns and causes your brain to shift its consciousness in his initiatory process into a new form of analytical thought. He actually gives you a new relationship to time, and listening to him and go through his entire little thing delivers you into a new state of thinking. The same can be said if you go and you watch like some of Jay Weidner's movies, especially if you put those together about the Stanley Kubrick thing, because it's an initiatory process. Or if you read the book about the Cross of Hendai, it's alluded to in there. And the initiatory process is basically a way of creating new brain cells that are excitatory within the individual to the consciousness of that individual. In other words, the consciousness of the individual within their own brain responds to the new brain cells being created, the new brain neural pathways being created in an excited and, let's say, if not happy, at least exploratory manner. In other words, it's something worth pursuing. You get all whipped up about it. So you may not like the information. It's all 100% true. I mean, you go and listen to David Icke. He's not going to tell you good things. He's going to tell you good things, actually, but he's going to have to tell you a whole lot of bad shit for you to get to the good things on the other side. And so there's a lot of stuff that could be quite depressing. But in the end, the changes in your brain are such that you become settled with it in a way that is unexpected and actually causes growth for you. And that's the way it is with Jay Weidner and a number of these other what we can call alchemical speakers, where their goal is to actually take you through a martial arts sort of an experience. David Icke and Jay Weidner's David Icke speaking, Jay Weidner's movies are in a way an initiatory process towards meditation, because they form certain pathways in your brain that can also be formed in the meditative process. Not to say that listening to David Icke or watching Jay Weidner's movies are going to put you to sleep or put you into a meditative process. They are not that. I'm saying they are akin to it, and that they form some of the same neural connections that you can also create in the meditative process, should you decide to go that route. Now, the point of all of this is getting back actually towards the idea of bursting energy and changing the script, which was alluded to in the discussion, the interview with physicist Richard Miller, because we're right at that point. We've got all of these evil, nasty bastards out there attempting to use magic and change the script on all of us. The way they're attempting to change this script is to form around themselves nexuses of energy with our consciousness. If you change your consciousness, you change their ability to use it for their ends. And so you actually end up not only becoming a blocking point because you instantly remove yourself from their power, but then because it can't flow through you to others, you hear somebody give you the... I've had it happen to me. Somebody was a good friend of mine. He could not get his head out of TV. All he kept doing was, during the Bush years, and there were a lot of them, he kept responding with the Republican talking points. That was all he did, was he kept saying back to me the stuff that was in TV. It was as though he had no original thought. And finally I just told him, well, I can no longer associate with you, because every single thing coming out of your mind, out of your mouth, affects my mind if I allow it to go unchallenged, and therefore I must challenge it, and this will be a barrier between us, and you will hate me eventually, because I'm going to dispute every damn thing that's coming out of your mouth, and you're obviously not, basically, he was obviously not willing to pursue and go to the intellectual trouble of taking the next step and becoming aware, or universe doesn't want him to, whatever the reason. And so we couldn't be friends anymore. I don't dislike him or anything. It isn't that. It's just that I would have become a real huge annoyance to him. Simply because you can't allow the big lie approach, once you become aware, you can't allow it in your presence. That's why most of our relatives and all our friends don't like us anymore. Because once your mind is aware, you're not going to like this Miller. He's telling you the truth because and understands what's going on just because of the way he delivers his information. He's not going to sit there and let his mind be polluted by stuff he knows to be crap. And so we're all at that stage on a huge level now. We're right at the threshold of crossing the chasm in the computer sense of the word, where there's enough of us that are aware that the early adopters and the early visionaries have now spread the word, and if we can go a little bit further, then we can start rippling into the main mass of the population becoming aware. And as that occurs, there's a fundamental transformation that occurs within the organization. Now, this organization that we're speaking of is terrestrial humanity. It may also extend to Martian humanity. I don't know. There's a lot of rumors to that effect, but we can't really say. Basically, in conclusion, though, all of these things leading back to this particular point in time. We've got the confusion of the election coming up. We've got a temporal marker that is huge. This scandal cannot be underestimated. They're going to try and clamp it down. It goes deep within all those weird supporting organizations for the Catholic Church that are all associated with the hierarchical organizational structure under which the older Catholic Church practiced its martial form. That is to say, there's all these Catholic organizations that are all based on castles and knights and Knights Templar, all of this. I mean, all the language going to that part. There's all these weird organizations that, from a conceptual viewpoint, go so far and then stop. And they are going to really be impacted by the way in which this scandal is going to break. And its ripples. It's also going to affect the markets, probably over the course of the next couple of weeks. I don't know if it'll affect the state of the elections here in the U.S., although it may amplify the confusion, and it may get it to the point where the economic stuff ripples in. It's going to be a real tight race to see which breaks here first. The media is so controlled here, I don't expect it to come out of the media, but we may get a large enough ripple through European media and the European currency disruptions here that there will be a kind of a what the fuck moment right around the period of the election, and that may contribute to our confusion. So anyway, I'm going to slow down here and go get some breakfast and start doing some work and try and get out of this chemtrail state. At least I don't have another one of those sinus headaches brought on at night. Those are insidious things. Just to let the guys over at Tavistock know. This is really funny. As speaking of, there's, you can extract patterns by a sudden lack of things. Evidence of absence does provide evidence in and of itself if one is astute enough to look. And it's just really curious. We have a slap you in the face version of it, because I think I've been told that over at GLP at the Gulper Forum, which is the Godlike Productions, which is owned by Tavistock, which is the mind control outfit that tries to start wars and fuck us all over, basically. That you can't put my name in there, you can't talk about web bots, and you get banned. So guess what? Humans are an inventive group, and so now they're out there, I guess, saying, he who must not be named. It's like, okay, so they basically created a new name for me. And so now, nonetheless, see, even my stuff is over there being discussed. My criticisms of the Gulpers and their association with Tavistock are still being discussed, even though my name can't be used. And I find this thing just so terribly amusing. The harder you try, the more universe comes around and fucks you if you're not going in the right direction. Now, this comes back to the harmonizing. If you listen to the Dr. Miller interview, he calls it flowing from the officialdom viewpoint. It's what I've always referred to as harmonizing with universe from the Aikidoka vision of reality. And when you're flowing with universe, I mean, I didn't do this, guys. I didn't suggest to anybody that a new appellation for my work be created in which my name is explicitly referenced by its absence. Had nothing to do with that. Universe does that. So let's see what else universe is going to do to Tavistock and the Gulpers, because they are going in the wrong direction. They are not harmonizing appropriately. I mean, it's legitimate. You have to give them that. The gulpers, tavistock, their evil satanic majesty, majesties, the frog duo. All of these beings have a legitimate approach to life, even though myself and others would call it, going to the dark side, or being evil bastards, or nasty fucking toads, or whatever. Their view of reality is just as valid as mine. It's just as valid as anybody else's. So I actually don't criticize their view of reality, and I don't make myself their enemy. They make themselves my enemy by their actions and by the way in which they pursue their view. So it is just funny in an ironic sense to me that at some point universe has just decided on its own, well, like I Ching and all these other things say, once you get to a certain point in the level of extremity, you gotta go the other way. So we've been too extreme for too long, and we're going the other way. And so people like David Icke and Jay Widener and Carrie Cassidy and myself and Dr. Miller and all the people that I call in the woo-woo business, basically, as long as we just keep plodding along, doing our thing, step by step by step by step, we're in harmony with the universe. David Icke's got this big deal coming up with one of these big stadiums in England. You're going to do a global simulcast on it. Quite a few thousand people will probably be debating it and having their minds changed that had not yet encountered that process. They're going to go on out and ripple through society in their own little enclaves of influence, but even greater than that. As Gandhi said, each and every one of our actions is totally insignificant and yet absolutely demanded by universe. And that's quite true. Each and every one of these people that hear David Icke, they will go on out and they will ripple through their little tiny audience of maybe 3 or 4, 5, 600 people. Who knows how far they extend. But they will stand there for the next wave of ripple magic from the frog duo out of the, great Satan that is or Satan worshippers that is the City of London and all of them guys. And when that wave hits these individuals, they'll say, no, it's not going through me. Piss off, mate. I don't buy that shit. And so they act as that barrier, and that single individual barrier that is that individual guy standing there in a small little village in England because he was initiated through the process into this new way of thinking by watching David Icke and then thinking about it and even bitching at him and saying where he's wrong and then thinking about it some more and saying, oh yeah, I guess you are right. That kind of stuff. That stanchion keeps the ball from rolling cleanly into the powers that be's little slot at the end of time. And apparently there's a whole lot more stanchions standing right behind us and a whole lot more behind them, and they're starting to pop up with some real seriousness at the moment because the powers that be are running into some seriously impacting problems. It's going to get really interesting from the point of the U.S. elections onward. That I'm going to sign off here in a minute, but the temporal marker that is this scandal and the murders and the bodies and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, it's quite gross. This temporal marker should not be underestimated, and I'm telling everybody who's in the currency business, who's in the money business, who's part of the evil bankster cabal that I know listen to these guys. It's here now. This is the connection. And so if you're going to be in that business, be prepared for what's going to fall out from it. Hopefully you'll be as disgusted as the rest of us. If you find you are not, watch out. You're the individual we're going to be coming for. So guys, all humans here on Earth, Mars, the Moon, all of us in this particular solar system, and any of us that have ever gotten and found our way outside the celestial embryo, the celestial womb here. Thanks for listening. It's going to be a very interesting time over these next few weeks. And go and listen to that interview with Miller and start looking at some of the other things I brought up. Thanks.